now. It has been a very different year and very much in line with the year we've just experienced. It makes a lot of sense that we have a atypical Pesach on our hands. So I'm going to do things a little bit in a different order tonight, or put a different emphasis in tonight's class, because I really want this to be very halach l'maisa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan by trying to cover first all the kind of unique scenarios that come up this year in terms of Erev Pesach, Shechal, B'Shabbos. And then after we discuss all of the things which probably were less familiar, because this scenario comes up every, at least according to this farm, I saw 12 times every 100 years. So it's relatively rare, the situation that we have. So we'll cover all the least discussed things. And then after that, we'll take questions. And then after that, if there's like those who are maybe beginners, their first time making Pesach, that want to go over like all like the basics of kashering and kind of the classic Pesach stuff, I'm happy to do kind of like a beginner's crash course at the end. And if everything's taking too long, we can also just push that off to another night if people are getting tired. But I want to first start with the areas of halach which I think are the least well known. So can everyone hear me okay? Just show some signs of okay. Lighting's not as great as I would like it, but it is what it is. Can everyone see me? Okay, it's fine. Okay, so let's go. I have two aids that will help us kind of go through and be our resources. Oh, host disabled screen sharing. David, can you make me be able to screen share? I have two aids that I plan on sharing on the WhatsApp groups after we go over this year. So you'll have all this to review. So those who are note takers who like to take notes and you're afraid you're going to forget, so you can, I'm going to send these out. This was prepared by Rabbi Mordechai Torchiner, who is the Rosh Kollel of one of the YU Kollels in Toronto. 1 second. Make sure I put up the right thing. What I'm looking for. Do you guys see the sheet that says Pesach 5781 frequently asked questions? Are you seeing that? Okay, so I'm going to share this on the Shul WhatsApp group afterwards, so you will have all of this material. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. The first thing I want to share with everyone, and this is just to put a positive spin on everything, is that although there's some anxiety over Pesach in general, and although there's even more anxiety over the unknown and entering a Pesach that we haven't done a million times, one silver lining of all this is that once we get everything down and once we know what we need to do, so Erev Pesach is actually going to be much more relaxing in the sense that my advice is that we're going to be essentially chametz free, maybe even completely chametz free, depending on what option you choose, as we explain our options for the Suda. The Schwartzes, I'll let people in as I see people coming in. But essentially, once we get to that Shabbos in 2 weeks, the hope is that Shabbos will be more relaxing. I think a lot of people don't dread that Erev Pesach crunch, getting everything ready for the Seder. So the goal is that things mostly should be prepared before Shabbos, that once we enter Shabbos, it can be more relaxing. And I know that for those with little kids, this might be a pipeline dream, but maybe those without little kids, or if you give your kids some melatonin or some legal safe drugs, maybe you'll even get a nap in that Shabbos. And then you might enter the Seder actually relaxed for the first time in your life, because maybe you'll be rested, because this Erev Pesach gives us the opportunity to be a little more rested. In theory, I know it's a long shot for some of us, but in theory, could be more rested because it's Shabbos, and then we'll go into the Seder not as uptight as we usually are on the first night of the Seder. Okay, so basically we have a bunch of challenges on our hands. Our challenges are that usually we do B'dikas Chametz on Yud Daled of Nisan and Erev Pesach, and then we do beer during the daytime, and then we go into our Seder. The challenge is that this year everything is going to be a Friday night when we can't do our B'dika and beer because we can't burn the chametz on Shabbos. And the whole purpose of the B'dika is to find the chametz in order to burn it. So the general rule of thumb is that, let me just see what's on the sheet. They might even talk about mechiras chametz first. Okay, maybe we can just again, I'm not going to go necessarily in order following the sheet, but we can look at this to make sure we cover our issues. But essentially, in order to keep things somewhat consistent, we're going to still do a bedika, but everything's going to be moved, and a biur, but we're going to move everything before Shabbos. So for all practical purposes, next Thursday night, we're going to do our bedikas chametz, and we're going to do a kol chamira, the same kol chamira we would do every year, which only talks about the chametz that we don't know about. We're basically doing a bit of the chametz we don't know about. Friday morning, we're still going to do a biur chametz. For those who feel safe, I think there's going to be one in town. A few sanctioned fires that the fire department is allowing. There's one on the other side of town. I'm not sure. I'm sure there'll be a few around town, but there are a few sanctioned fire burnings for biur chametz Friday morning. You will not do a kol chamir like we usually do Friday morning, because we don't want to get rid of the chametz that we do know about, because at this point you're still going to potentially be eating chametz, at least if you choose to have challah or some sort of chametz for your Shabbos food. So we won't do a kol chamir Friday morning, and then Friday morning we will also do. I will do the sale for everyone with Rav Willig, either depending on how many rabbanim they let into his shul. Either I'll be there in person or we will be there on Zoom. But we'll do the sale Friday. The mechir that we're going to do Friday will not include whatever lechem mishnah, if you so choose to keep lechem mishnah for your pseudo Shabbos. It will not include that bread in the sale. It's contingent. It's right on the top of the form I sent out today. So you'll have your lechem mishnah. We'll do the sale, and then essentially my advice is you really should go into Pesach chametz free, except for potentially if you want to have lechem mishnah. I would say keep it in a separate bag, keep it airtight. I would advise your whole house should be chametz free, and you should consider even having that lechem mishnah as part of your pseudo Shabbos, even eating it outside, separate from the rest of your food. I would advise all of the food you're going to eat on Shabbos next week should be made in disposable pans or in kosher for Pesach. If you're fully switched over to kosher to Pesach, make it in kosher Pesach pans and eat the challah outside. If you don't want to do it on kosher Pesach pans, or you're afraid of mixing, if you're afraid of mixing of your lechem mishnah, I would really advise eating the challah, outside, or having your meal outside if possible, weather permitting, or just eat over plastic and then throw out the plastic and then go on with the rest of your meal and bring out whatever foods that you prepared on disposable utensils, keeping it separate from the bread that you use for lechem mishnah. So let's take a step back now, explain what the dilemma is. Essentially, usually typical year, you're allowed to eat chametz through the 4th hour of the day. You like it hana into the 5th hour of the day, and then we burn it before the 6th hour of Erev Pesach, because it's Erev Shabbos. Because this year Erev Pesach is Shabbos, we have a unique challenge of what we're supposed to do, because we still have an obligation to have lechem mishnah for Shabbos. Now, the first 2 meals, there is an obligation to have lechem mishnah. Shalosh shudas is a little more flexibility in that shalosh shudas. There are deos that say one could be yotze with fruit or fish or meat, and therefore there's a little more flexibility for the 3rd meal. I think if my advice is what I told my wife to do is to if you really are scared of having any bread and you're willing to go all in being ready for Pesach for Shabbos next week, I would advise against the wishes of other years to buy 1 box of egg matzahs. Okay, usually egg matzahs, we don't recommend Erev Pesach, because Erev Pesach we typically don't want to eat matzah because we want to have the excitement. We want to not have the taste of matzah ready on our tip of our tongue. We want to be excited for the mitzvahs matzos. But in this year's scenario, egg matzahs actually are a great remedy, because you can't fulfill your chiyuv on the night of Pesach with egg matzos. So it's actually advisable that the minhag is you don't eat matzos on Erev Pesach, because we want to be going to having that taste for the te'avon, eating the mitzvahs matzos at the night of the Seder. You also are supposed to have lechem mishnah. So what are you supposed to do? So there are two options. You could either have challah and then be very, very paranoid of keeping those challahs separate from all your food. Or if you don't want to be so paranoid, you want to have a normal Suda Shabbos, you could just use egg matzahs. And you can use the egg matzahs Friday night. You can use egg matzahs Shabbos day. And Rav Shechter said you can even use egg matzahs for Shalosh Shudas. So in previous years, in normal years, we don't tell people to get egg matzahs because you can't eat egg matzahs on Pesach unless you're sick. We actually don't eat egg matzahs because there's a special chashash that egg matzahs could become chametz. There's a whole discussion about the role of egg matzahs. This year in particular, egg matzahs could be a halachic lifesaver for Shabbos Shechalios, Erev Pesach Shechalios b'Shabbos. This scenario to get one box of egg matzahs and use it for your 3 meals, according to Rav Shechter. Now, let's go through the various issues and challenges with the 3 sudos. I realize also this is didn't have so much time the last couple of days for Hamei ben Yavin. It's been a pretty crazy time period, but I will take questions. We'll stop for questions in a couple minutes if I haven't been clear, because I realize I'm trying to think through a lot of scenarios. Essentially, the other dilemma we'll face next Shabbos is that on the one hand, we need to stop eating our sudos, which need to stop eating bread. By the latest time for eating chametz is 10:56. So we have a little bit of a challenge in our hands. How do you have 3 sudos, or even get your second suda in if usually we don't get home from shul until 11, 11:30, 12? So what are we going to do? So first of all, we're going to have earlier davening options to give people the option to get home earlier. What I would advise is, if you don't want to get up for the early minyan, you only want to get up to the secondary minyan, that's fine. But what's probably the easiest thing to do is as follows. One could either go to the early minyan and then come back and basically have your Suda Shniya as breakfast. Get back by, let's say, 9:30, 9:45, have breakfast, go for a little walk, have a break of approximately 20 minutes to half hour, and then you'll bench after your little kiddush, your breakfast, and then you'll wash again after your little walk. You break it up, and then have your Shalosh Shudas all, and then have a third meal with your challah or your egg matzahs. Have Shalosh Shudas all before 10:56. That's one option. The problem is not many people want to wake up for a 7:30, 7:45 minyan, have a very quick davening, come home and rush through and have Shalosh Shudas all done by 10:56. It doesn't sound so appetizing to eat 2 meals before 10:56 on Shabbos morning. So I think the more benachas approach, or let's say the middle approach, is you could go to, let's say, an 8:30 minyan, get home at around, let's say, 10:15, even 10:30, and then wash and have your Suda Shniya, your early Shabbos meal, let's say your Shabbos brunch, your second Suda Shniya, still with challah, and just finish the challah portion by 10:56. After 10:56, you're still allowed to eat mine targima. You're still able to eat meat, fish, fruits. You're able to eat other things. Your bread, your chametz, though, needs to be done by 10:56. Again, that would be a middle option. If you're just doing the egg matzah option, if you're doing egg matzahs, so then egg matzahs, so you could continue to eat really until the 10th hour of the day. So you wouldn't even have to rush. But let's say you really want your Zaydi's challah, or you really want some sort of challah for Shabbos morning, you could still have your Suda Shniya and just finish your challah portion of the meal by 10:56, and then you could continue to eat as long as the challah is totally gone. By 10:56, you'd have to stop eating the chametz, and then you'd have to keep in mind that the bittul of the chametz, the second kol chamir that we do now, the kol chamir also on the chametz that we do know about, would need to take place at the exact time by 11:59. So you have to keep in mind, keep track. You want to make that second kol chamira and dispose of whatever, if there are any crumbs left of the challah, by 11:59. That's all assuming you went with the challah option for your Suda Shniya. Then you have to get rid of if there are any crumbs. So let's talk for 1 second. If you chose that option, how would you get rid of those crumbs? There's a discussion. The poskim talk about flushing down the remnants of the crumbs down the toilet. That is one option. Rav Soloveitchik didn't love that option. He felt like it was a little bit of a disgusting option. Take your challah and flush it down the toilet. We wouldn't usually do that to our special lechem mishnah, which we love so much. So if you can't finish your challah entirety and eat it. So another option would be to take the crumbs and walk into the street, not in your property, and kind of just shake out your crumbs into the street. That's probably another option. Poskim also discussed maybe just putting it in a garbage bag and walking it to a public garbage can. There's not always a public garbage can, depending on where you live nearby, so that might not be the best option. That is why I think the simplest thing to avoid all these questions is to use egg matzahs. That's what Rav Shechter said he's going to do. He's going to use egg matzahs this year. So that is my advice, but I do recognize that some people are very attached to their challah. They really want to get those last two meals of their challah in Friday night and Shabbos day. If you do that, you have to finish eating the challah by 10:56. You have to finish destroying the challah, which some poskim say you could flush it down the toilet. Some poskim say you should just, let the crumbs out into the wind, or you put it in a public garbage can, not on your property. Okay. If you do egg matzahs, so then you're not bound by the same time crunch. If you do egg matzahs, you can have egg matzahs all the way until the 10th hour of the day, which is approximately around 3 o'clock. I didn't calculate exactly for Fairlawn, but what I've seen from other rabbis throughout the country, that 10th hour of the day is around 3 o'clock. Then you can eat a little bit more benachas and relax your secondary meal. Okay. The other advantage of egg matzahs is the question about shalosh shudas. That there is a discussion about shalosh shudas. So how do you fill your third meal on Shabbos? And because the third meal is supposed to ideally be after the time we can daven mincha, so after a mincha gedola, so after, let's say, approximately 12:30 on a perfect day, that's when you should have shalosh shudas. If you can wait till 12:30, that's way after the shas bir, the time for destroying the chametz and time for isra achila. You obviously can't have chametz. We also don't eat matzah on Erev Pesach. That you should have an appetite for the matzahs later that night at the seder. So comes in the novelty of egg matzahs, which egg matzahs we don't use to fill our mitzvahs matzah on the night of the seder. It's kind of a no man's land. It's, on the one hand, we don't consider halachic matzah for this purpose, and it's also not chametz. So, and also you have to be as careful of the crumbs, because it's not considered chametz. It's just not mitzvahs matzah that you can use for the seder. So I think egg matzahs this year actually will make everyone probably a lot less stressed out. If you use egg matzahs, if you use all disposable utensils or stuff that's already made in kosher Pesach, with egg matzahs, you don't have to worry about crumbs getting in your food and whatnot. The other issue is if you choose to use chametz, you may have a problem also with washing your utensils. You're not supposed to do hachana, so you're not supposed to wash. Let's say you want to keep your chametzik utensils out on Shabbos. You're not supposed to wash your chametzik utensils on Shabbos, because there you'd be being mechen, because you really have no use for these utensils. You won't have use for them for another 10 days. So you really don't want to get into shaylas of how you're going to clean your chametz utensils. It's just easier, simpler to use disposable or use already your Pesach-dik vessels. And if you're going to use your Pesach vessels, certainly you shouldn't have your any chametz near them. So it's complicated. There's so many factors. I'd say factor number one, how early are you willing to wake up? Factor number two, how willing are you to have a second meal, potentially a third meal before 10:56? And factor number three is how attached you are to your challah. All those factors will need to factor into your determining, how you want to play out your Suda Shniya and your Suda and your Shalosh Shudas. Now, another option for those who really want the simple option is to follow what the Ramah says. The Ramah says for Shalosh Shudas, you just can have fish or meat. You can be yotzei through fruit. You can be yotzei with Torah, Talmud Torah, according to Rishon Bar Yochai. So this is a time of Shas Nachak where if you don't want to stress out about Shalosh Shudas, let's say you don't want to even have egg matzahs. Another option is have your Suda Shniya done by 10:56. Have your Shabbos morning lunch, your bread done by 10:56. But at least Shalosh Shudas, you could also avoid the shaila by just having some fruit or some gefilte fish and then calling it a day. Whatever you're going to do, don't overeat. The goal is that you should go into Saturday night, into the Seder, with an appetite to have your 4 cups, to have your mitzvahs matzahs. You don't want to eat too much for Shalosh Shudas anyway, but there's so many different competing factors. Okay, I think I'm going to pause here and allow for questions, because I think I said a lot and it was probably a little chaotic. So any questions?
Is Rabbi, and when you say egg matzah, is it any egg matzah or particularly the one with the grape juice? 'Cause I know in past years, I remember learning about the special egg matzah.
That's an excellent question, Ron. I'm so happy you brought that up. Okay, so there is a sheet of the Rambam that says that egg matzahs are only considered egg matzah if they have one of the four types of liquids in them that make them considered halachic egg matzah. The Rambam says they need to have honey or oil or wine in them. I think the usual or regular year, not in this year, the Manischewitz egg matzahs are made with fruit juices. They're not made with wine. They're not halachic egg matzahs. They're just kind of like fruit juices. And that's actually why we have a problem with them, because they might not maybe we're afraid, what are they? Is it matzahs? Is it chametz? Is it really egg matzahs? So Rav Schechter said that this year, he said that the matzah manufacturers all make sure to make the egg matzahs with wine, to make sure that even according to the Rambam Shita, they are considered halachic egg matzahs. Rana, you or some of the people who have been shopping right can tell me better. I asked my wife to look on the egg matzahs that she's going to buy. Does it say made with wine or grape juice this year?
I'm not doing any shopping this year because we're going to Yafe and Mati's, but in past times, I remember finding, I think Hadar makes it, and it says grape juice on it.
So that's what Rav Schechter said. Rav Schechter said that this year the egg matzah factories all make sure to include grape juice or wine in it, specifically to be considered halachic egg matzahs, even according to the Rambam. And then you got the halachic egg matzahs. But even if it doesn't say it, it's still valid. That's just in order to fill the sheet of the Rambam, who says that egg matzahs need to have specifically wine, oil, honey, or I forget the fourth beverage. But yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. There's another question I see on the chat. Can egg matzahs be eaten past the time when chametz can't be eaten? Yes, that is the mila of egg matzahs. Egg matzahs can be eaten until the 10th hour. So if you're doing the egg matzah route, you really could have a regular lunch at 11 o'clock. Again, we might have davening early to give people, the majority of people who might want to have challah. We might have early. If enough people tell me we want to have bread, we want to have egg matzahs, we're not going to do challah, we could do a regular 9 o'clock minyan. As of now, we're thinking of doing some earlier minyanim, early minyan options. That way people can come home and at least finish their lunch by 10:56. If you're doing the egg matzah option, though, you could have that after the Shas Isra Achilas Chametz. You just need to stop by the 10th hour, which is around 3 o'clock. I'll give you the exact time as we get closer. If you're doing for Shal Shudas, meaning Targima, you want to have an apple for Shal Shudas, an apple you could eat after 3 o'clock. So let's say you fell asleep after your lunch and you woke up and you're like, oh, I forgot to have Shal Shudas. You could still have an apple after the 10th hour, but egg matzahs, everyone would agree, not past the 10th hour. Okay? It's a little bit of a chiddush. It's against the Ramah, this idea of Rav Schechter saying you could have for Shal Shudas egg matzahs. In a usual year, we don't have egg matzahs on Erev Pesach. This is Rav Schechter came up with this kind of idea, and I'm not going to get into the lumdus of why it's allowed, but essentially that this could kind of solve some of our problems for having these pseudos. Okay. Great. There's another question. Siyam B'chorim. I knew I was going to miss something. Thank you. Tanis B'chorim. Everything is pushed up. So once we're pushing it up, then we're not going to do it at Erev Pesach. So we have the Tanis B'chorim would be pushed up to Friday, but we don't like to fast on Friday since it's not really the day when we're supposed to fast anyway. So once we're pushing it off from the day that's Yud Daled Nisan, so we push it off 2 days, not to push off the fast early to Friday. We push it off to Thursday. So this year, Tanis B'chorim will be on Thursday. We are planning on having a siyum in the morning after the 7 o'clock minyan in Darche. We will have a siyum. Everyone's welcome to join in person. We'll have a Zoom live stream. You can join on Zoom. That's totally fine to participate in the siyum, and then you can eat just like any other year if you participate in the siyum. I actually saw in the FAQ, or one of the things I'm going to send out, that this Rabbi Torchiner has a link if you want to learn like all of tractate Tamid, which I think is the shortest tractate. He has like a link to like do it all in a short amount of time. For any of those who wake up late and you're desperate for a siyum, I'm sure there'll be siyum in the West Coast. You can zoom into a siyum on the West Coast. So if you wake up late, we'll figure something out for you. But the Tanis is on Thursday this year. Okay, I think because Daf Yomi is finishing Mesach Pesachim in a week or two, before this time, we'll have lots of people who can make a siyum. So I'm pretty confident we'll be able to find multiple siyumim for people who need to wanna not fast for that reason. Yeah, Schwartz family question.
There was a question that if we eat the challah outside before 10:56 and finish the meal inside, where do we bench?
That's a good question. It's a good question. Where do you bench? I think in general, when we talk about shinoi makom, we usually say there are different shitas of what constitutes a shinoi makom, a change of place. So if you can, ideally, like my living room, my dining room is, I can see like my outdoor porch. If you can ideally eat in a place outside, let's say you wash and have your bread in a place where you can see to your dining room table or the rest of the meal, that wouldn't constitute a shinoi makom. We talk about a shinoi makom, we mean bias. You go from one house to another house. There are different shitas. The whole complicated thing of what constitutes a change of location. But I would say, for simplicity's sake, have in mind when you wash. I'm having in mind I'm going to wash outside. I'm going to wash and eat my bread outside on the porch, and then I'm going to come inside, eat the rest of my suda. Have that in mind. And ideally, if you could even see the place, that'd be better. That'd be considered like you were ba'osa makom in the same place. So to answer your question, you would bench where you finish the meal inside. I don't think it's to go back. If you ate your bread outside with intent to go inside and finish the rest of the suda, I don't think you have to go back outside to bench. Okay. I'm pretty sure. I could double check on that. I'm pretty sure. Okay, there was a question. We don't normally nap on Shabbos. Can we do it this year? I think this year, especially for the ladies, this is the year to take a nap. If you ever were thinking you could get a nap on an Erev Pesach, this is the year to do it. I assume there was a tongue-in-cheek question, but yes, if mommies and daddies and brothers, whoever's there can help make sure everyone gets a turn taking a nap, especially if you have family visiting and there are more adults available to help with if there are children to be watched, it would be wonderful to go into the Seder benachas. That's the silver lining. There's a chance that if you survive this whole shalosh shudas, egg matzahs, shas achila, if you survive that whole thing, after that, the day should be free. Lots of hours for a nap. That's the dream. Okay. Oh, that's a chumrah. Someone asked, they were saying, is it hachana to take a nap, to be rested for the Seder? That's an excellent question. I don't think so, because the Gemara says that this is the only time where the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Kiva, I forget who the Amor, we just read in the daf a few days ago, where they would clap on the bima that we have to go home early to rest, to make sure that the kids, that we can start the Seder on time. Again, I might be giving interpretation what the Gemara is saying, but we want the meal to move. We also want the Seder to be enjoyable. Yes, it's not hachana. Shabbos is a day of rest, and that's what it's for. Hachana is when you're doing something only for the next day. But if Shabbos is Yom Menucha, so you could rest on Shabbos. No problem taking it. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions?
Would reading the Haggadah to prepare for the Seder be considered hachana on Shabbos?
No.
We don't.
The gra, there is a shaila about usually on Shabbos Haggadah there's a minhag to read some of the Haggadah, like to start reading the Haggadah, and the gra didn't like it. The gra didn't like reading this minhag because there is a havamina that you can already fulfill your chiyuv of Sipur Tziyas Mitzrayim right from Rosh Chodesh. We say Yachol Me Rosh Chodesh. So the gra didn't like this minhag of reading the Haggadah. So I'm not sure, Brown, if that's what you're alluding to. There is an opposing.
No, just reading some portions so we have what to say at the Seder.
I think that's a beautiful way to use your Shabbos, to have something to say, prepare. Not an issue of hachana. No, it's totally mutter. Unless you're makbid like the gra, but I don't think you are. Okay. Yes, David.
It's a question a little bit out of ignorance, but could you have matzah meal before Pesach? Would there be foods that would be forbidden for you to eat other than bread? Let's say you have a knedla.
Yeah, so the Mishnah
made for
says,
matzah.
Yes, it's a good question. Mishnah says that knedlach is another option you could do for shalosh shudas on Shabbos. The Mishnah actually mentions the word Kanelach, which is kind of funny to see it in the Mishnah Berurah. He mentions that you could be Yotzei Shalosh with Kanelach, which implies you could have matzah meal on Erev Pesach. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. Yeah, I know this question came up about like schnitzel. Are you allowed to make schnitzel? I want to double check. I didn't focus so much on it. I know the answer is you could have Kanelach because Mishnah Berurah said you could have it for Shalosh Shudas, but I want to double check about like schnitzel made with matzah meal. I'll look into it and give. That's a great question, David. I'll look into it.
Yeah, Rabbi, just a quick question. With when you're burning Friday, do we just burn? We don't see the kol chamira, that second kol chamira until the next day.
Correct. You'll say the second kol chamira on Shabbos because the assumption is you're leaving over some chametz for your Shabbos sudos. Now it's true that those who do the egg matzah option may be chametz free going into Shabbos. I still think you'd make the kol chamira on Shabbos. Meaning the minhag is you don't make the second kol chamira until you're really ready to go, and that'd be. We want to also keep things consistent for typical years. So you'd make the kol chamira sometime between 10:56 and 11:59. So yeah, first kol chamira is with Bedika Thursday night, second kol chamira on Shabbos. Yeah, Schwartz's.
Did you want to answer the questions that came in from the form?
Oh yes, we can go to that. Yeah. Let me just show you one other, I find the screen share is hard to scroll down, but one other thing that another rabbinic friend made, I can show you very quickly. So you'll see it for those who are like, wait a second, he told me these can give us for notes. Here's another like checklist one of my rabbi friends sent out. Can you guys see the step-by-step guide for Pesach? Okay, so I'm going to send this out. I'll put it on the WhatsApp group. That way it has a little bit of a basic reminder. Again, this is prepared for, I think, California, so the Zman might be a little off. Northridge, I think, is California, but I saw this. It might be helpful, just a checklist, a reminder of what you need to do. So I'll put this on the WhatsApp group afterwards and with the frequently asked questions. Okay. I wanna also spend a little bit of time talking about the Mechiras Chametz form because I know I tried to put as much information there as possible, but I feel like every year it helps to just go over it. Okay. So I want to just go over the Mechiras Chametz form. The basics. Okay, we need to break in our groups here of who's going away for Al Pesach and who is cleaning for Pesach. If you are going away for Al Pesach, essentially the whole reason you're going away is you don't want to clean. I'm sure you love your family where you're going to, but you also don't want to clean. So the rabbis allow you to do a Mechiras Chametz. A Mechiras Chametz, and there's an added clause that we can even lease the property that is underneath the chametz. It's like an added chumrah as a way of getting the chametz into the hands of the non-Jew. Okay, we don't lease the property if you're going to be using the property. So those of us who are staying at our homes for Pesach, we're not going to do that clause. But it's an added chumrah for those who are leaving to make sure that the sale is conclusive to also lease the property. Okay, we don't want people though to use this opportunity of doing mechiras chametz to get out of the mitzvah of bedikas chametz. Bedikas chametz is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, and the rabbis want us to do mitzvah bedikas chametz, searching for the chametz, because chametz is not just about the physical crumbs. Chametz is an act of bedika of also looking through the chor and looking through our hearts, looking through our midos, looking through self-introspection. So in order not to get around the need for this mitzvah d'Rabbanan, what we do is we advise people to essentially choose one room, the easiest room to clean in your house. Maybe it's a spare bedroom, maybe it's an office, it's a non-bathroom, your easiest room. And that room we won't lease to the non-Jew. And in that room, the night before you travel, you'll do a bedikas chametz in that room. You want to put the 10 pieces in that room? Great. You can make a bracha only if it's the night before, only if it's Thursday night. If it's not Thursday night, you wouldn't make a bracha on that bedika. Let's say you're driving somewhere Friday. You're driving to parents, in-laws that are drivable distance on Friday. In theory, you could make a regular bracha on the office in your room that we won't lease. You'll clean that room of chametz, but then we would sell or lease the rest of your house to obviate you from having to clean the rest of the house. We just don't want people getting out of having to do the mitzvah b'dikas chametz. Okay, so when you're filling out the form, whether it's the online form or the form in person with me, I want everyone to just pay attention that you only need to fill out that clause if you're leaving for Al Pesach. If you're coming back for second days, if you're only here for the first days, you're only here for Cholwa, if you're going to be using your house at any point, a Jew can't have chametz out. So that form is, you still need to clean your house. Now, you don't need to clean as thoroughly. You just have to make sure there's no chametz out. So let's say I'm going to my parents for first days and my in-laws second days, all in the tri-state area, but I'm going to be back in my house for Chol Hamoed. You don't have to do a deep clean, but whatever rooms you're going to be using, there shouldn't be chametz out. You just tape up the cupboards, make sure the pantry is taped up. It says labeled chametz. You don't have to do a deep clean, but if you're going to be using your house, you shouldn't do that clause because you don't want to lease your house to the non-Jew if you're going to be using your house. But you should also not have any chametz out, lest you come to eat it thinking it's yours. I'm going to have sold it to the non-Jew. So it's a little, they're each case a little bit different, but the basic rule of thumb is if you're leaving for all of Pesach, we'll lease your house aside from one easy to clean room. If you're going to be home for any part of Pesach, we will not do that clause. We will not do that clause in the sale. And more importantly, make sure the rooms you're going to be using are chametz free. Just taped up your china cabinet. You don't need a vacuum your china cabinet. You don't need to wipe it down. Just tape it with a piece of tape that says chametz free. Okay. I think that's the usually the question I get asked the most when it comes to mechiras chametz. Any question about mechiras chametz that you think might be appropriate for more than just yourself?
Yes, Rabbi Donath.
Yeah.
Is someone allowed to enter the apartment if you sell the apartment?
Yeah, it's a good question. Rav Willig always says that John Brown's a very nice guy. We don't know who our John Brown is. Unfortunately, John Brown was nifter this year, so I don't know exactly who our non-Jew is. We're Rav Willig and the Rabbanim are trying to figure it out. But the assumption is the non-Jew is a very nice non-Jew, and he's not going to mind if you come in to get something from the property he leased from you. So the assumption is you need to grab something. Can't grab the chametz. The chametz is not yours. But if you need to grab a shirt or whatever, you need to get some non-food item that you could go into that property. Yeah.
What if someone else is going to go into the property? Let's say you sell your property, you're going to Virginia, and then someone else says, hey, I want to use your, read in your room while you're gone. Could someone else do that?
So technically, it's not your room to let that someone else. Again, how would a non-Jew know? I'm not sure how we would know. But you should treat it as much as a real sale as possible. It is a real sale halachically. So you shouldn't, if you're selling if we're selling your house and you're not cleaning, no Jew should be in that room. If you're cleaning your house and we're just selling the chametz, we're not leasing the house. So you could, let's say I'm going away for Pesach, but I want someone else to be able to use my empty homes. They don't have to pay for a hotel. So if I want to clean my house, I as the rabbi, I'm not going to lease that person's house. If you clean for Pesach, I'm not going to lease your property, and you're welcome to let anyone come and use your house because you clean for Pesach. It's only that if you're not going to clean for Pesach, then I'm going to lease your house, and then I don't think it's appropriate to then have someone be using your house. To come in for 1 minute to grab something, that's different. But you can't say I leased the house to the non-Jew and then you're letting you're running an Airbnb out of your house and saying, making some money on the side. Okay. All right. Any other questions about the mechira? Okay. Someone asked an excellent question. I don't know who submitted it to the question about mechira of offices. It's an excellent question. The question that was asked was, let's say I haven't been in my office in over a year. Let's say last year I sold my chametz through Rabbi Donah, through Willig, wherever we sold your chametz, and then you literally have not been in your office in a year, and your boss tells you that they cleaned out the office. What do I need to do with the chametz? With the suffix chametz? We don't even know if there's chametz there. In theory, they went through your drawers. In theory, they looked for all your snacks and they threw them all out. What I would say is as follows. I think you have to work under the assumption, it's a great question, but I would think you'd have to work under the assumption that your snacks that you keep in your drawers might still be there. I don't know how carefully your bosses and the cleaning crews went through your individual desks and drawers to look for whatever snacks you keep there. I'm sure they went through the fridges because they don't want things which are, spoiled and moldy to start smelling up the office. But I do think if there's a suffix that you remember having chametz last year in your office, so even if I sold it for you last year, we bought it back, and so you became a balba davar after Pesach last year. So I do think you should put it on the form. What do you have to lose? You just have to add one more line of all the addresses that you're adding. So I do think that's a good practice to add on the form, totally out of a suffix. Probably it's not there. But what do we have to lose? You're basically saying, if I own any chametz in that property, the way the wording is, if I own chametz in that property, I'm not leasing the property. I'm saying if we own chametz in that property, so then we're gonna take care of that. I don't see what harm you'll get by putting it on the form.
That was my question, actually. But now that you're mentioning it, there's no way that if the non-Jew were to actually try to show up to take it because of like they won't give him access to the building, especially this year with COVID, because you can't get anywhere. So isn't the risk that it totally undermines the quote unquote realness of the sale, that there's some stale something that may or may not exist that they wouldn't let anybody actually come in and look at anyway?
I don't know, the office buildings, really, if you had a crisis you can't get in, I don't know.
I think get it. If the non-Jew, like nobody without credentials is being allowed anywhere these days.
Yeah. I still think you should put it on the form. The risk of owning chametz is not worth it. I think the whole question, mechiras chametz, is the whole question, age-old question, whether it's harama, whether it's a whole loop around. But we're very machmer chametz. We don't want you to own chametz on Pesach. So I still think it's worth it. I hear the question, right? I still think it's worth it to put it on to make sure you don't own it. Again, you should also do a bittul. Well, let me take a step back. You're gonna do a bittul. First of all, no one's eating that. I don't know, what do you keep in your drawer there, Shal Yaakov? A Reisman brownie bar? I don't think you're gonna eat it a year later. The Reisman brownie bars, those could last for years probably. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, you're eating your chametz that was there from last year. So you're doing a bittul, you're messiahish, you're mafkir. But I think putting on the form. Again, if another big Rav said differently, I wouldn't object. But I think it just makes sense. Okay, another question that came in on the form was about toothpaste. So every year toothpaste comes up. Toothpaste is one of those things that it's not really edible. Rabbi's book on Pesach says that when it comes to all your non-edible things, well, let's say, first of all, take a step back. All your cosmetics, all of your shampoos, all of your paper goods don't need a hechsher. Even if they say they're made with wheat, I don't know, I have Aveeno hand cream. It says it's made with some sort of wheat. There's a big picture of grain on it. That's nifsal me'achilas kelev. You don't have to worry about, you can use your Aveeno hand cream on Pesach. That's nifsal me'achilas kelev. I'm not worried about that. You don't have to sell that. You can use it. The shaila is about things which you put near your mouth. The question is things which you put in your mouth, like toothpaste, like lip balm. The shaila whether or not it's considered achsheveh, that when I put it near my mouth, am I giving it like an achila status? Rabbi says that toothpaste me'ikar adin is not really food. No one eats it. So me'ikar adin, you don't need to go crazy finding your toothpaste brands on the list. But we have so many koshering agencies that do so much research, and they're so easy to find out which brands are good. So I would say if you can find a brand that's good, I don't know, Colgate. Usually the big ones are on the approved list. If you can find approved toothpaste without a big tircha, it's always better to get the ones that you have information saying they're approved. But let's say you have some outlying case. The example that was given in the question was your kid only uses bubblegum flavored whatever. First of all, for kids, I'm less concerned. But secondly, mikar adin, this stuff, no one is really eating it. So I'm not as concerned with toothpaste. But if you can find children's toothpaste that is approved, that's definitely better. Definitely better. Okay, those are the questions that were posted on the sheet. Does anyone have any questions or things that maybe I did not touch that we would like to go over? And if no one has questions, then I'm happy to stay on and do a run through of kosher and kalim, where I could do a quick bullet, quick reminder, a very short reminder of how to kosher the kitchen.
Rabbi Dona?
Yes.
There was another question that came in. What should we do with chametz garbage that we accumulate between our last garbage pickup and the start of Pesach?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's another reason why I think that you should really be chametz free. Friday morning, again, I'm biased here because I have Friday morning garbage pickup. Everyone's welcome to bring their garbage cans that don't have Friday morning garbage pickup to 2nd Street. We're gonna just have lots of garbage cans on 2nd Street. again, our section, I don't know whoever else, not just my street, but our section, you're welcome. I think we should be kosher Pesach Friday morning. Then you throw out all your chametz and you're good to go. Again, you still, if you want to have your challah for your Shabbos meals, you still could either eat it all or do the whole flushing down the toilet or throw it into the wind. That whole dilemma. I just think it's easier to have all your garbage off your property by Friday morning. So it works out nicely for all those who have Friday pickup. And then those who don't Friday pickup, bring your garbage. By the way, just if you think it's weird dragging your garbage bin to another section, I did that last year. I won't say to whose house, but a bunch of us in Sec Street brought it over to Burdan Avenue. You can guess whose house had like 10 garbage cans lined up. El Presidente, how many garbage cans are outside of your house? All right, whatever. Who doesn't want to tell us? But there was a lot of garbage cans outside the Burdan properties. Okay, so whatever. If anyone wants to take a spazier with your garbage cans, I've been that guy. It's a little awkward walking down the streets pulling garbage cans, but you can do it. Grab a friend. It's better with a friend. Okay. Any other questions? Honestly, the other option is let's be a little bit more serious. If you don't want to do that, I would say you could, with an eruv, you could bring your garbage, if you have challah, to River Road to a public garbage disposal and put it in a public bin. I don't think the town wants us bringing our entire bags. I think that it would be a chil Hashem if you were lugging big garbage bags with like all of your garbage and dropping in the bins on River Road. I do think it's fine if you brought like a small bag of ShopRite bag with just your challah and your leftover challah, like a small baggie. I don't think anyone would have a problem if a bunch of Jews put some small bags of bread or half of challahs in the River Road public disposable bins. Okay. What else? I can't see the questions. Where are the questions coming in, Shir?
Rabbi Donath, I know I'm asking a lot of questions only because I don't want to ask the Rav later on in time, since this is a session for questions.
Yeah.
But when you make the salt water, do you have to do like a shinu, like put the salt first and then the water, or the water and then the salt?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think in general, if we can, anything which you can prepare for the Seder, I'm not going to answer your question directly, David, but it brings up a bigger question. Anything you can prepare for the Seder that will taste the same, it will be, just as good. Better to do all the preparations on Friday for the Seder to have stuff done. If there's certain things that you can't get done, we usually don't do hachana from Shabbos to Yantif. Hachana is not just from one day Yantif to another day Yantif, it's also from Shabbos to Yantif. So we should try to prepare that stuff before Shabbos. Okay, so as much as possible, I don't know, obviously roasting your leg for your zroa, or your beitza for your Seder plate, all that stuff needs to be done on Friday. That's what I'm saying. You're getting your nap on Shabbos because you prepared ahead. If you prepare ahead well, then in theory you don't have to do anything on Erev Shabbos.
Another question came in: with kids who won't sleep during the day and can't stay up for the Seder, what is the best plan so they can participate? If I misinterpreted the question, fill in, whoever wrote it.
Yeah, it's a great question. The question is assuming that you can't make Kiddush. You can't start the Seder until Tzeis HaKochavim. Remember, we're going to be finishing Shabbos. So this year in particular, we can't end Shabbos early to get home to be ready to go. So if you're going to shul on a Shabbos afternoon for Mariv, the Seder is going to start late this year. So again, kids are allowed to eat late afternoon. The whole thing of finishing by the 10th hour, your matzah shira, the idea of going into Seder on an empty stomach to be excited for the Seder, that's really for adults. For kids, I would give them dinner. My wife gives my kids dinner, I don't know, whatever, 5, 6 o'clock, like you would on an Erev Shabbos, give them on Shabbos afternoon if they're under bar mitzvah. Again, depending on how old your kid is. If your kid can wait up and not eat, great. But I'm assuming anyone, I don't know, 12 and under, let's say 11, a year before their bar bat mitzvah is going to be hungry, you can feed them late Shabbos afternoon. Again, we should try to incentivize make the Seder exciting. The goal is to put the focus on the kids. So as soon as you get home, you should be ready to go. At Tzitz L'Chav, you want to start the Seder, no dilly-dallying, and get the show running. I'm going to say this, no divrei Torah, no holding things up until the kids have had a part. If you're worried your kids are going to sleep because you're sharing divrei Torah, you're schmoozing, that's on you. Make sure the spotlight's on the kids. If we put the spotlight on the kids early enough, hopefully they'll be able to stay up. And the little kids who can't stay up anyway, so it is what it is. You're going to try your best. If you want to, if you're afraid they're going to be disappointed, so two things. Number one is the kids don't need to wait till if they want to sing the Manishtan or do whatever parts they prepared in school, let them say it for you Shabbos afternoon. Let them have a mock Seder, with them before Pesach starts, after Shkia. For kids, if you needed to, in theory, you could let them. You can let them have the egg matzahs. They won't know the difference. They don't have to know that the egg matzahs aren't their mitzvahs matzah. They might think that the egg matzahs. What do they know? Again, I think the big thing is they want to show off their songs and what they learned. So that can be. There's no zman for that. They can do that earlier. And if they waited up, if your kids waited up all the way till today, so then you really got to put the focus on them because they've put in the effort. So reward them by putting the focus on them. That's a great question. Okay, what else? Okay. If anyone wants to go now, if anyone feels like they don't want to stay for refresher, I'm gonna give. I would say I think I can do this in about under 10 minutes.
Sorry, one quick question, Rabbi, that just came in. Question for koshering discussion. Please discuss koshering glass, both drinking glasses and dishes that probably has hot food.
Yeah, so koshering glass is a big discussion. Okay, let me do that first just so I don't forget. So there's a machlokas between Sephardim and Ashkenazim. The Machaber says glass is not polea, so you don't have to worry. You can use glass really for all year round. Ashkenazim are machmer that glass is polea, so we use different utensils, different glass dishes for fleshik and milchik. Sephardim use the same. Pesach is a whole other discussion. So there's the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says that you can do something that I don't know. I saw my mother do in my house. Is how we grew up. That my mother would fill a bathtub and leave the glass. I don't know what they're even called, decanter and the various glass dishes in the bathtub for 24-hour periods, and then she would let the water out of the bathtub and then rinse and repeat and do it again 3 times. It's called milei ve'irui. Yerushalmi says you can kasher glass b'shas rachak by filling it in a bathtub with cold water and letting it soak. That's an option. I grew up. That's what my mother did. I remember asking Rav Shechter when I was in yeshiva about it. And he said, yeah, that was the minhag in Europe that they would kasher glass for Pesach. We became very wealthy and spoiled that we don't have to rely on this Yerushalmi, which is not accepted lehalacha, and it's not mentioned in Shulchan Aruch, as far as I know. Could be wrong, but I don't think it's accepted by all the poskim. So we typically don't kasher glass for Pesach. We only kasher metal, which everyone agrees can be kashered. So I would say if you have this favorite piece of glass that your Pesach will be ruined, you can't have it, you could fill it in a bath with cold water, submerge the glass in the water, and then leave it there soaking for 24 hours, and then empty the water out, refill it with water, do it again. I think it's 3 days, 3 24-hour periods before Pesach. So you have to prepare ahead. If you really want to kasher your glass for Pesach, that would be for glasses, all types of glass. You can do that. But if you don't really need your glass, I don't recommend doing that. Okay, let's talk about kashering the kitchen. I'm going to give you just the Rashi Prakim. The Rashi Prakim are, the basics are, don't use, clean everything well, don't use for 24 hours, and then kibolo kach polto. You want to kind of create a high heat, the same way that however the thing is used, you get any chametz taste out. So you're gonna make sure all of your utensils, this is the rule of thumb, they need to sit for 24 hours not used. They need to be cleaned as well as possible with proper cleaning agents. And we're talking about your stoves. So many stoves say do not use the easy off. Even though they say they're good for stoves, they're really not. So you have to check with your manufacturer what it can handle in terms of easy off in stoves. You clean it as best as you can without ruining your thing. And then you want to put it up to a high heat. what that looks like for each thing will be dependent on how it's used. So when we talk about the oven, if it has self-clean, you just push self-clean. If your oven has 3 different self-clean options, choose your adventure. I think they're all dangerous. So I would say they're going to go up to very high heats. I would say do the safest one, do the 2-hour one, 3-hour one. You don't have to do the 6-hour thing, because a lot of times my mother always says that her self-clean breaks her ovens, and then she has a problem, needs a new oven every Pesach. So don't use it, clean it as well as possible. Sorry, let me just clarify. Self-clean, you don't even need to clean it. Self-clean, it's so hot. It's called Libun Gomer. Self-clean, you don't have to do anything. You just push self-clean and you're done for your oven. If you don't have a self-clean oven option, then you would not use 24 hours, clean as best as possible, and then put it on the highest setting for 45 minutes to an hour. Not an exact science. You're basically trying to recreate the hottest it ever would have been used for the chametz to go in, is the way that it gets out. Kibol o kach bol to, the way it goes is the way it comes out. So your ovens is either push self-clean and you're good, or clean, wait for 24 hours, and then put the highest heating for about 45 minutes. When it comes to your stovetop, stovetops can malfunction if you turn them all up on a very high setting. So again, don't use for 24 hours. Clean. The order of cleaning and not waiting 24 hours does not matter which order. Either order is fine. You can clean it, not use 24 hours, and then each grate turn on the highest for about 15-20 minutes. It's not an exact science. It's basically no one would have put their hottest soup on high for more than 15-20 minutes, as far as I know. If I'm wrong, those soup lovers out there, you'll let me know. But you're basically trying to recreate the hottest it would have been used. Do each burner separately so it doesn't overheat your oven. The area in between your oven is a question. If there's spillage there, what I advise is, if there's spillage there, don't lick whatever spillage there. If you drop a good piece of corned beef in that spillage, okay, you lose a piece of corned beef. Usually it's not a piece of corned beef. Usually it's just some splattering. So treat the area in between the grates as treif for now. If you want some metal ovens, you could put stovetops. You could put some tinfoil there, and then you catch the spillage. I have a glass stovetop, so glass is a whole shiloh for Ashkenazim if it can be kashered. So I don't. I think the manufacturer says not to cover it in tinfoil. So the different shitas about covering the area in between the grates. Okay, so we did your stovetop, we did your oven. If you have a what's it called, a vent on top of your stove, the fancy vents, I would just wipe it down with a damp towel, clean it with 409 or whatever cleaning agent, because the only thing could have been some light steam up there. I don't think you really need to do more than, if you want to cover with tinfoil because you liked Mayor K's example. I don't know that video he made with, like, he's covering his whole house tinfoil. If your mother and Bubby cover the whole house tinfoil and you feel more comfortable covering the whole house tinfoil, have fun. But you don't need to cover your whole house tinfoil. Your sink is, usually I tell people Shira's trick is kasher Saturday night, because then you haven't used it for 24 hours. You obviously can't do that this year. So your sink, you have to find time not to use your sink with hot for 24 hours before you kasher it. So that can be tricky. So you have to maybe figure out when if you're lucky to have 2 sinks, a milk sink and a fleshig sink, maybe you have to be strategic, because each sink needs to be not used with hot. It can be used with cold. That doesn't ruin the 24-hour time, but it can't be used with hot for 24 hours before kashering it. So you don't use the sink for 24 hours, and then you clean it as well as possible with cleaning agent, and then you would take a kumkum. It can be a Pesach kumkum. It can be a regular year kumkum, and just heat it up and like kasher itself. Let the kumkum itself run to a boil. Basically, a kumkum, every time you fill it up, it basically kashers itself, because it's a running boil inside the kumkum. So, but I always just use a Pesach kumkum, and then I take it and I pour boiling hot water over every spot of my kitchen sink. I don't even have a stainless steel sink. I have like a I don't know some other cheaper material, so you can do it. You can look in the OU guide, the Star K guide. Those guides are all good, but they tend to be more machmer. So if you're freaking out because your kitchen sink is porcelain, different people in the shul have called me with such situations. We've got heterim for them to kasher their sinks also. So give me a call and we'll figure something out. But you pour the boiling hot water on those as well. But the OU guide, the Star K CRC, those are all great resources. What else? You want your sink, your countertops. So again, countertops, the same thing. You just no one's using, for the most part, you have to really wait 24 hours. No one eats hot roast beef on their countertop, but you clean it well, and then pour boiling hot water on top of every spot of your countertop. You have to be very careful with this. Pouring hot water in your sink, okay, so it goes into the base of the sink. It's not as much of a danger, but pouring in on your countertops, it's really a two-person job. Kids should be asleep if kids are in the house. One person with a towel to really make sure that hot boiling water does not go splashing everywhere. Be very careful doing that. Question always comes up with steamers. Different postings say different things. For the most part, we don't like steamers because if there's a way that hot food went on your countertop, it probably went through a pouring spill. And a pouring spill is more of a direct liquid. Steam is mist. So we don't like mist because it's probably not the way that it went in. So it's not the way you get out. So we don't love the steamers. I think last year I remember Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg in Boca said that the industrial steamers might be okay. Now there's like the Bed Bath & Beyond steamers. Those are like the cheapo ones. Those are no good. But it could be an industrial steamer. Might be okay. I don't advise. I like the old school. I'm an old school type guy. I would just say use the pouring the hot water. If let's say you're I don't know, it's not safe for you to use. If there's a safety concern, obviously don't use the pouring hot water. Then maybe use industrial steamer or call someone else. Call a friend to help you with this part of the kashering process. Okay, your fridge, you don't need to do anything. You can wipe it out and clean it if you want. You can cover the racks because you don't want, it should be clean, but there's nothing hot. So you don't have to do any crazy cleaning. You know, it's a good time to clean out the mold and crumbs out of your fridge. You don't really do anything for your fridge. Your ice machine, you can use also. Some say you just wipe it out, clean it out. But again, nothing hot ever comes. It's very hard to have any real challenges with your ice maker. If you have a tray, a night table, what's it called? The tray table high chair for your kid. So that you want to really do a deep cleaning, take your vacuum out, do some, 409, get in all the cracks and crevices. If you only have one tray table, I would advise taking like a plastic sheet, like the plastic saran wrap that grips. It doesn't always stay for very long. It always falls off, but that's probably the easiest, just to cover it. If you want to try koshering it, you can. We are making the kosher hot plastic. You could pour boiling hot water over it also. But I don't know, my kids, when they were really little, they were eating milk and meat and it was all one big treif hodgepodge. I don't think I wouldn't advise spending too much time koshering your child tray table. Yes, Shira.
A question came in. What about the plastic water dispenser on a fridge that only has ice and water, and the water on the door on the front thing?
Yeah, I would just wipe it down with 409 and clean it. The bigger issue comes with the hot water urns that we use throughout the year. From Gedalia Schwartz says a regular urn, if you never bring it with chametz, you even could use that on Pesach. The reason we're machmer to get a kosher Pesach urn is I make coffee, and maybe one year I'm going to put in my French vanilla flavoring, and that coffee is going to steam up Shabbos morning and go. The steam is going to go on my urn. So that's why people are machmer to have a separate kosher urn for something that's used hot. But what this questioner is asking about their fridge, everything's cold, so the chances of chametz getting absorbed in the water, the ice, is so slim. Just take a wet paper towel. You want to put a little cleaning agent and first clean it with some cleaning agent. Wipe down the spouts. That's fine. If nothing hot was ever there, I'm not concerned. You can use that water, use that fridge. Just wipe it, clean it. That's it. Let's say if you have one of these Poland Spring, or we have some other brand, if you want to use that, so you just put a new bottle, wipe it down, clean it. If you have a hot water dispenser, that could be a shaila. We don't use ours for hot, so I'll tell you what I honestly do. It's really not so safe though. I usually try to take like the kumkum and just kind of throw a little hot water at my spouts, so I feel better about it. It's really not safe. I don't know why I do it. I think it's not so safe. So just clean it and wipe it down. I do it because I'm crazy, but you don't have to do it. You don't have to really kosher those spouts. Okay, anything be you can definitely make home. Yeah. What else? Microwaves. So microwaves. Ramosha was macher not to kosher microwaves. The meaning of the Torah world is that we do kosher microwaves. The whole discussion is, does a microwave get hot enough So Schechter said that the fact that you can see through the glass how steamy it gets when you put water in shows that the steam is legitimate steam to penetrate the chametz when you're making your macaroni and cheese during the year, and B, when you're putting in your styrofoam cup with your water and boiling it for 6 to 10 minutes. So the minig is to be makel. Those who follow Moshe's psakim, so he's machmer not to kash your microwave. The minig is to be makel. You take a styrofoam cup, fill it with water, and put it for 6 to 10 minutes. That gets really steamy inside your microwave. Wipe it down, and then take your cup and put it in a different spot, and then repeat the process. Maybe the second time doesn't need to be done as long, just to get some steam in the place where the cup was situated the first time. So you want to kasher that spot as well. So that's how you kasher your microwave.
Yeah, Rabbi, do you have to wait 24 hours?
Yeah. Everything is wait 24 hours, clean with a cleaning agent. Always. Everything that's hot needs to be done that process. Warming drawers are complicated. Remember last year the OU guide said something about putting a sterno from a chafing dish inside your warming drawer. The issue with the warming drawer is they don't get that hot. In order to kasher something, do libun kal, it's still supposed to get up to like 400, 500 degrees, and the warming drawers get up to like 253. I could be wrong. Ask someone who owns a warming drawer what the highest heat is, or someone who owns a warming drawer, tell me the highest heat. That's the shot of the warming drawers. Can they get hot enough? So you could probably, if you want to do the chafing dish, put the sterno inside and light it on fire. Good luck. It just sounds dangerous to me. I don't like the idea. I don't like the sound of it. Anything which is like blow torches or sternos on fire in my warming drawer, it just sounds dangerous. I don't advise it. I would say if you can live without your warming drawer for 8 days, that'd be the best. If you're very, very, very attached to your warming drawer, then I would say then put it to clean it. Don't use 24 hours. Put it to the highest setting, and then in addition, line it with tinfoil, with new tinfoil for Pesach. You could do that. That's fine. I would say that's also the advice for your plata. For your plata, clean it. Don't use it 24 hours, which that's never a problem because you only use it once a week. Oh, but if you're using it for Shabbos, you'd have to be also, that's something to think about. If you're going to use it for Shabbos for your hot food, it would definitely have to be kosher Pesach. And then we definitely need to know about your schnitzel with matzah meal. I'm pretty sure the answer to that question is you're allowed to use schnitzel with matzah meal on that Shabbos or Pesach, but I will confirm that question.
I have a good recipe that doesn't use matzah meal. It uses the potato latke mix.
And Rana saves the day. Rana to save the day. That would be the best. Yeah. If you don't use matzah meal, then that'd be the best. Excellent. Thank you, Rana. So your plata, don't use it. Clean it well. 24 hours. Clean it well, and then put it up high for about 40 minutes. 40 minutes. I don't know how long does it take to get it really hot. Till it gets really hot. 40 minutes, an hour, and then unplug it. Let it cool off, and when it's cold, cover it in tin foil. The blechs, if anyone uses the old school blechs where you just put a metal sheet on top of their open flame, they say the regular metal blechs you're not supposed to kasher for Pesach. No, that's what they say. Okay, what else? The Keurigs, and we have a Keurig. We're big Keurig users. The OU says you can kasher it. Keurig, you just you clean it well. Don't use 24 hours. Then you do iroi kli rishon. You pour. First of all, you take out the inserts. I never knew this, but there are inserts in the Keurig. There's like the K cup holder, and there are like 3 different parts. You got to take those parts out, clean them really well. They're hard plastic. Boil up a boiling pot of water and just dump them in and kasher them in your. It's called hagala. Do hagala on a boiling pot of water, and then at the end of hagala, take it out with gloves and then pour cold water on top. That's how you do hagala. After, make sure they're in a boiling pot of water that's running boil. Dump in those Keurig, whatever they're called, K-cup holder plastic inserts. Put them in boiling hot water, and then put them in running cold water afterwards. Okay. There's no bracha for kashering, by the way. What else? Coffee. I think Nespresso. I saw some link to how to clean an espresso. I don't have that, but if anyone wants a link to that, I saw there's something about that. What else? Medicines. Anything medicines. Now we're shifting gears. Food-wise, medicine. Anything which you swallow. Any pills that you swallow does not need a hachsher. Anything you swallow is fine. The real issue is the chewables. Anything chewable is a real issue, or the liquid syrup. So the liquid syrup, the chewables, you should find out what's in them, see if check the lists. I will every year I buy the Star K app for medicines. I pay the $8 for the shul. So that way, if you don't want to pay the $8, I'll pay the $8, and then you can ask me to look up your medicines for you. But anything swallowable is swallowable, a pill, even if it has a little flavoring, is fine. It's not considered achila. It's just the chewables are the issues. So all your vitamins,
the
yeah,
kids'
the kids'
vitamins,
vitamins, that comes up every year. I'll double check again. I think I saw something recently saying that it's anything prescription is okay. Anything prescription. For the
Tylenol
kids,
is making,
sorry, for the kids also, we're very mako kitnios. Kitnios, you're allowed to get hana from it. The kids, we're very mako for a chola for sure. So if you can find out about that, I will find out about that. Yeah, Rana, go ahead.
Tylenol now makes a powdered form. And it's flavored. Is that a problem?
So powder, but it has flavor, so it might be like you're eating it. I'd rather just do the capsules if you can. What's the advantage of doing the powder form?
Because since having surgery, it's harder for me to take pills down.
So we'll talk offline. We'll figure something out for
Okay.
you. But in general, if you don't have a extenuating circumstance, they try to do the swallows. Yeah. Okay. What else? Any other questions that I did not cover?
Rabbi Dona, sorry. Quick question about Kiddush cups and things like that. The necessity to either not tova, but use hagala to kosher them for Pesach, even though technically all grape juice and wine that's being used is kosher Pesach and they're removed from the table. Necessary, unnecessary?
Yeah, it's a good question. Someone asked me in shul tonight also. I think the minhag is to kasher. The reason why we kasher our Kiddush cups is in theory, we don't think of this. There are other ways besides with heat of getting something to impart taste. In theory, if you had something sharp like scotch or whiskey that sat in your becher, again, I know that usually we put something like that in a glass bottle, not in your becher. But in theory, if you had something with alcohol that sat in your kitchen sink for 24 hours, there's an idea in halakha called kavish k'mavushal, that just soaking can also make the tam absorb. So in theory, kavish k'mavushal could apply if, let's say, my becher sat with wine for 24 hours, that wine could impart taste. Now, I understand from the question that wine is usually kosher to Pesach, but in theory, it could have been used one time in the year for beer or one time in the year for schnapps. And out of chashash, we're typically machmer to any utensil that could have been used with chametz. We don't use unless we kasher. So the challenge with the bechers is that the Mishnah Berurah writes, the poskim write that if it has a rolled lip, anything which is hard with like any small cracks or crevices, like a rolled lip, like I got this fancy Kiddush cup that has a rolled lip at the edge. So those it's hard to kasher because the water in the hagala process, if you're going to put it in your boiling pot of hot water, it's hard for the water really to get in those cracks and crevices. So they say like if you have a very fancy decanter or a fancy something with like nooks and crannies or small openings, we don't kasher those. So it really depends on how your bechers are shaped. I think if you have a becher where it just goes out and doesn't have the rolled lip, you can kasher those. If you don't have such a becher, again, I don't think it's so crazy to use disposable, those fancy looking bechers for Pesach. Sometimes people don't want to use the big bechers because they get have the smaller shiurim. Again, maybe I don't think it's as big a deal because we have like a different set. Like someone got us like this like modern looking set we use for Pesach, but I don't think you need to have your fancy becher for Pesach. But again, the minhag was always that when I grew up that we brought our bechers to shul and we kashered them. Unfortunately, Darche doesn't have we don't even have a stovetop, so we can't even offer that service. I think Shem Torah is doing it. If you want to go to bring your bechers there, you can. And just
I do it at home.
Or do it at home.
I grew up doing it, so I just wanted to.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's such a mimetic holiday. Like whatever we did when we were young, that's what we assume is normal. I just want to say about cleaning. We didn't talk about cleaning at all, or we did a little bit, but cleaning, it's like depends on your Masorah. If your mother was very into it and crazy about it, so then you think you'd be crazy. And if your Masorah is not that way, you can take it a little bit easier. So
Yeah, Rabbi, just curious, can you use tongs that are Like you have to use Pesach, kosher Pesach tongs to dip it, or does it matter?
You mean to get it out of the?
Like when you're putting it in the pot, the boiling pot of water, if you're doing it at home, let's say, the tongs, I don't think, let's say you have to get a kosher Pesach ones, or is it not matter?
Can you just
That's a
do it
good-
in a chametz pot with chametz tongs?
Well, if you use a chametz pot, then you should let the chametz pot first kasher itself. I mean, you obviously you need to get the you can use a chametz pot. You let the pot get the running boil. But Uri's asking how am I can get it out? I mean, the pot can be chametz because then the process itself kashers the pot. How do I get it out? Maybe just kasher the metal part of the tongs. But let's say I'm assuming your tongs, let's say, have a rubber end. So even if you don't want to kasher the rubber end, you could stick the metal part, the tongs in first, kasher those, and now they're kasher Pesach, and then you use that to take out your becher out of the thing. I'm sure that's what they do in the shuls when they do the big one. They first kasher the tongs. Yeah, anything metal you can kasher. Yeah.
Right. Okay, good point.
Okay, this has been fun, right? A lot of us haven't hung out this way in so long. We should do this more often. Okay, any other questions? I hope this has been helpful. I really wanted this to be practical as opposed to me just going through telling you random lumdus and divrei Torah. That's good too, but I want this to be very practical. Okay, it's been an hour and 20 minutes. I think we can stop here. If there are any further questions, please submit. Oh, wait, there are some questions on the side here. Let me just answer these quickly. These side questions. K-cups have to be kosher for Pesach. Coffee, decaf needs a proper hechsher because the decaffeination process can somehow be subject to chametz. If it's regular unflavored coffee, does not have to be kosher for Pesach. Regular unflavored coffee. Okay. And is kashing a barbecue grill any different than kashing a stovetop? Yeah, I don't recommend doing kashing a barbecue grill. I don't recommend kashing barbecue grills if you bought it from a non-Jew. It's very. We tried using a blowtorch and you don't see the difference. For 7 days I would recommend not. If you're going to do it, then you really should use a blowtorch. And I get nervous with blowtorches, so I don't really highly recommend it. Some people say you could use a blowtorch, you could get a new grate. Totally new grate. That's expensive. Buy a new grate just for 7 days. Again, if that's a really important question because you're going to throw a big barbecue on your grill, so then we'll talk more offline how to do that. Okay. Any other questions? Feel free to reach out to me. I did record this, so as soon as I stop the recording, we'll have it for necessity. Maybe Shira, if you could send it out to the group, that'd be great. And any questions? You'll text me, WhatsApp me. Leave messages. It's easier for me to get back texting and WhatsApping people quicker. But if anything needs to be talked out, of course, I'll try to call you back if I can't answer right away. Okay, Chag Kosher V'Sameach, everyone, and we should be zochet to have an amazing Pesach. We should feel that whatever stress, anxiety we usually have for Pesach, we've been through so much worse this year. So we should feel like Pesach should be a breeze. So and we should be zochet that the month of Nisan should be, Nisan Nigalu, Nisan Atidin Gael. We should feel that this month is a month of Geula, of feeling that on all of us, on whatever level we are at, are feeling a sense of redemption, a sense of taking steps towards normalcy and tranquility, and ultimately, to the ultimate Geula and Yeshua for all. Thank you all for coming, and have a great week. And the Shabbos Haggadah Drasha will be on Thursday night at 8:15, 8:30. We'll figure that out. But Shabbos Haggadah Drasha on Thursday night on Zoom, and plenty of in-person options as well. Laila Tov.
Enjoy your week. Have a good night.